I came back home for the summer break, expecting nothing more than quiet mornings, mom's cooking, and long walks around the neighborhood I grew up in. College had been overwhelming, and I was looking forward to the familiar. My old room, the creaky steps in the hallway, the scent of vanilla candles my mom always lit in the kitchen. What I didn't expect was Diane. Diane had always been around. My mom's best friend since they were kids. She was practically family. She used to babysit me when I was little. She taught me how to ride a bike. I remember her big laugh, her red lipstick, and the way she'd ruffle my hair every time she came over, calling me her little man. But now she was different. She was staying with us for a while. I learned from Mom that Diane had gone through a rough divorce. Something messy, drawn out. She didn't want to be alone in her big house across town. So Mom invited her to stay in our guest room for a week or two, just until she felt like herself again. When I walked into the kitchen that first morning after arriving, Diane was already there, sipping coffee and staring out the window. Her hair was longer than I remembered, and lighter, like summer had settled in it. She wore a soft, oversized robe, and when she turned to greet me, her smile came a second late, gentle, a little tired. "Well, look at you," she said, setting her mug down. "You've changed." I laughed, scratching the back of my neck. "College does that, I guess." She tilted her head, eyes trailing over me like she was piecing together the kid she used to know with the man standing in front of her. "You look older," she said with a soft chuckle. "And taller, way taller." We hugged, and even that felt slightly different. Not uncomfortable, just unfamiliar. Her perfume was the same, though, warm and familiar, something between sandalwood and citrus. It took me back to long ago movie nights and birthday parties where she helped Mom decorate the living room. The first few days were unremarkable in the best way. Diane and Mom caught up over wine in the evenings. I mostly kept to myself, reading, working out, helping around the house. But occasionally, I'd find myself sharing a quiet moment with Diane, like when we both reached for the same sponge at the sink and laughed, or when we watched an old sitcom together while Mom was on the phone. There were small looks, glances that lingered a beat too long. Her eyes flicked toward me when I walked into the room, then darted away. I caught her watching me once when I was mowing the lawn, a curious expression on her face. Not quite a smile, not quite something else. Late one night, I came downstairs for a glass of water. The house was dark, except for the soft yellow glow coming from the living room lamp. Diane sat curled up on the couch, legs tucked under her, reading a book. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked without looking up. "Just thirsty," I said, trying not to stare at the way the shadows moved across her collarbone, the curve of her shoulder under the thin fabric of her tee. She looked peaceful, vulnerable even. She closed her book and looked at me. "You seem different, you know?" "Different how?" Her lips curled into a small, knowing smile. "Just not the kid I remember. That's all." I shrugged it off, gave a sheepish smile, and said good night. But as I walked back upstairs, glass in hand, something about the way she said it echoed in my mind. Not the kid I remember. The line was blurry now. Diane was still my mom's best friend. Still the woman who once patched up my scraped knees and made hot chocolate when I had the flu. But something was shifting, and I could feel it, even if I didn't understand it yet. The days settled into a rhythm. Mornings began with the clink of coffee mugs, lazy conversation over toast, and that hazy sunlight that filled our kitchen like it had missed us. Mom would usually head out by mid-morning, errands, lunch with her yoga group, whatever kept her busy. That left the house mostly to me and Diane. And somewhere between the casual glances and shared laughs, the silence between us began to say more than our words. It was subtle at first. She'd brush past me at the kitchen counter, and her fingers would lightly graze my hand. Not always intentionally, but not always by accident either. Once we reached for the same spoon, and instead of pulling her hand back quickly, she let it linger on mine for half a second longer than she had to. She met my eyes afterward and smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile you give a kid. It was the kind that said she noticed me now. All of me. One afternoon, I came inside after jogging, sweaty, breathing hard, shirt sticking to my back. Diane was on the back patio, reading with her sunglasses on. I grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge, and as I walked past the sliding glass door, I caught her watching me. She didn't look away. She tilted her glasses down slightly and gave a little smirk, then turned the page of her book like nothing happened. Later that evening, after dinner, Mom went upstairs early with a headache. I stayed in the kitchen, cleaning up the dishes, when Diane walked in quietly behind me. "I can help," she said, already rolling up the sleeves of her cardigan. "Nah, I got it." She leaned against the counter next to me, picking up a towel anyway. "You always this responsible now?" "I try," I said, rinsing a plate. "College does that to you. Makes you grow up." Her voice was soft. "Yeah, I can see that." She didn't elaborate and I didn't push, but her tone held something in it, reflection maybe, or curiosity. That night, I stayed up late reading. Around midnight, I went to the kitchen for a snack. Diane was there again. Same corner of the couch. Another book. But this time, she wasn't wearing her usual robe. She had on a light camisole and pajama shorts. Barefoot, her legs tucked under her, and she looked stunning. She glanced up, her eyes slightly tired but warm. "We keep running into each other like this. Maybe we just don't sleep well," I joked. She laughed. "Maybe." I poured a glass of milk and leaned against the wall. "What are you reading?" She showed me the cover, some romance novel. "Guilty pleasure," she admitted. "Though these days, it just makes me feel a little nostalgic." "For what?" I asked. She tilted her head. "For when life felt exciting, spontaneous, when someone looked at you like you mattered." I didn't know what to say. The way she said it, soft, almost whispered, made something in me stir. Not just desire. It was deeper than that. It was connection, recognition, like she was talking to me, not just near me. "I think you still matter," I said quietly. She met my eyes. There was no smile this time, just something vulnerable, raw. Her gaze flicked down to my chest, then back to my face. "You've really changed," she said. The air between us felt thicker, electric. I didn't move, neither did she. Eventually, she stood up, brushing past me, close enough that her shoulder touched mine. "Good night," she whispered, as she disappeared down the hallway. I stood there in the quiet for a long time. The night felt full of words we hadn't said yet, and I wasn't sure how long we could keep pretending we didn't feel them. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind replayed every glance, every phrase, every pause in Diane's voice. It wasn't just about attraction anymore, though undeniably that existed too. It was the way she looked at me like she was asking something without ever saying it. Like she wanted me to understand something that even she hadn't figured out yet. The next morning, everything seemed normal again. Diane wore a light summer dress, hair pulled back, chatting with Mom over breakfast like nothing had happened. But I saw the way her fingers curled around her coffee mug. Tense. Controlled. I said little and left early to clear my head, walked to the park, sat by the lake, wondered if I was just imagining it all. By the time I got back, Mom had gone out for the afternoon, and the house was quiet. Too quiet. Diane was in the living room, curled up in that familiar spot, flipping through an old photo album. I paused in the doorway. "Hey," I said. She looked up slowly. "Hey, I was just looking through some of these old things. Your mom saved everything." I stepped in, sitting on the armrest of the couch. The photo album was open to a picture of me at maybe 10 years old, standing in front of a birthday cake, grinning. "You were so small," she said with a laugh. "I used to chase you around the yard with a water hose." I smiled. "You used to bribe me with popsicles to get me to stop crying." She closed the album gently, her fingers lingering on the cover. "It's strange, you know?" she said. "You're that little boy, but you're not." I looked at her, really looked at her. "What do you mean?" She turned to me, expression unreadable. "You're not a boy anymore, are you?" The words landed like a soft blow, gentle, but impossible to ignore. I swallowed. My heart thudded. I don't think I am." There was silence, the kind that feels louder than words. She stood slowly, walking a few feet away before turning back to face me. Her arms crossed loosely, her expression conflicted, part guilt, part longing. "I don't know why I said that," she murmured. "Yes, you do," I said, standing up. We stood facing each other in the stillness of the room. The distance between us felt fragile, like a line drawn in sand. One step and it would be crossed forever. "Diane." Her name felt strange on my lips, like I'd never said it before. "Not really." She exhaled shakily. "You don't know what you're doing." "Maybe I don't," I said. "But I know what I feel." She shook her head, her voice breaking. "This is a bad idea." "Then tell me to leave," I said. "Right now. Tell me to walk away." Her eyes searched mine desperately, like she wanted to say it, wanted to stop this, but couldn't. She didn't say anything. She just stepped forward instead. Her hand brushed against mine, then lingered. I could feel her breath, and just as quickly, she pulled back, her face twisted with regret. "No, I can't. I shouldn't." She walked past me and disappeared down the hall, leaving me standing there alone, heat still rising in my chest, hands trembling. Not with fear, but with the pressure of all that had almost happened. She had drawn the line again, but we both knew it wouldn't last. Because once that thought exists between two people, it never fully disappears. The hours that followed felt stretched, heavy with unfinished words. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, hearing the quiet hum of the house. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her standing in front of me, heard her say it again. "You're not a boy anymore, are you?" That single line had broken something open, something we'd both kept quietly buried beneath politeness and shared history. The next morning was overcast, a light drizzle tapping against the windows. I came downstairs, expecting her to be gone, to have left a note saying she needed space or time. But she was there, in the kitchen, her back to me, pouring coffee like it was just another day. She turned as I entered. Her face was soft, unreadable again, but there was no coldness. "Hey," she said, voice low. "Hey," I echoed. We both stood there for a moment, unsure. Then she gestured toward the table. "Coffee?" I nodded and sat down. She placed a mug in front of me, then sat across, her hands wrapped around her own. Neither of us spoke for a minute. Then she broke the silence. I didn't sleep much. Me neither. She looked up, eyes slightly red, like she'd cried but hadn't wanted to. I never expected this, she said. I came here to breathe, to forget the last 2 years of my life. I didn't plan on you. I know, I said gently. She glanced away. I'm not trying to confuse you or take advantage. When I looked at you last night, I didn't see a kid anymore. I saw someone who listens, who sees me. I do, I said quietly. I always have. She let out a breath, shaky and surprised. That's the thing. I think part of me knew you were growing up, but I didn't want to notice. I tried not to, but you make it impossible. The rain picked up outside, soft and steady. I reached out, my hand resting on the table near hers. We don't have to rush anything, but you don't have to pretend anymore either. She looked down at our hands, then back at me. And what would we be if we didn't pretend? I didn't have an answer. I didn't know what would happen next. All I knew was that something had changed. Not just between us, within us. We had crossed into unfamiliar territory, but it didn't feel wrong. Felt real. I don't know what this is, I said, but I don't want it to be nothing. She smiled softly. Me neither. She reached for my hand, finally taking it in hers. And in that simple touch, not heated, not rushed, just still and honest, there was more clarity than in all the words we'd been afraid to say. It wasn't a beginning or an end. It was something in between. And for now, that was enough.